Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Today we have Chief of Police, Don Hedrick, and then Sheriff of Pennington County, Thom, right?
Thom was how I say it, but close enough.
How is it?
Thom.
Okay.
Like home.
Okay. Congratulations on the new chief position.
Thank you.
And your third term being...
Yep, 42 years in law enforcement, third term as sheriff.
Yeah.
Wow.
You guys got a lot of responsibility going on.
That's very true.
Yeah. Especially at times like these.
Challenging times indeed, but that's when you need law enforcement the most.
Being police officers, that whole defunding of the police, I think is a little ridiculous. And a lot of people around here too. Like, we're not the world. We're in our own community. We're in the Black Hills, and you guys are, law enforcement here in the Black Hills. Have you guys taken a lot of grief lately on the whole defunding and the riots and stuff that are going on?
So, defunding the police has been a topic that's come up, and I believe it's, for the most part, a small group in our area, and they're asking some questions, which some of them I think are justified. A lot of responsibility is placed on our law enforcement. There's a lot of duties that we pick up because nobody else is. Mm-hmm. And I can give you one example. A few years ago, we started up a quality of life unit, which is a group of police officers that go out to work with the homeless and the vulnerable in our community. Yep. And we're going out, we're meeting them on their ground, we're meeting them by the creek, and we're trying to get them plugged into resources. And many folks would say, well, why are the police doing that? Why isn't a social worker out there doing that? And the simple answer is we're doing it because nobody else is. And I think that if you were to look at cutting services like that, you would want to make sure that you had something else in place to take care of the vulnerable folks, because they would be the ones that would suffer if we were to defund some of these outside, non-traditional law enforcement programs.
Yeah.
And I like just build on what the chief said. I mean, law enforcement has become the safety net for everything in society, from homelessness, substance abuse, mental health. We're out there 24/7, 365. So we've kind of become the default.
You guys get blamed for everything.
and we're fine if somebody else wants to take on some of those responsibilities. And we have a lot of partnerships in our community with the nonprofits and others that come alongside us. But that has been shifted inordinate amount to public safety. But the fix isn't to defund police. The fix is to look for a better way to do business and look for other resources to take care of that instead of law enforcement doing it.
Yeah, that's what I think too. There's always a bad apple in some sort of business, no matter what you're in. And I mean, just like the police department, there's got to be a couple bad apples, but you got to weed them out, like media, the politicians, but I mean anywhere.
Yeah.
And you guys are actually doing a pretty great job. I've had when I had Captain James John on.
Oh, yeah.
He was really great. He actually informed quite a bit of the community about quite a bit on that podcast that we had.
Good. The ripple of negativity and distrust that came out of Minneapolis, I think, that's affected us here locally. We've had protests and such, and we were caught in the middle just a little bit of where we wanted to help people exercise their rights, but do it in a safe way. Do it in a manner that, doesn't cause a safety issue or doesn't infringe on the rights of others.
Yeah.
And here locally in town, we've done what we could to make sure that, if you're going to protest, how can we help make sure it's done in a safe manner?
One thing I didn't understand, and it's probably going to piss off quite a bit, but we live in the Dakota Territory. Mm-hmm. I did not understand the whole Black Lives Matter move around here because we're not highly popular like that. We're a native, more based community than every community is different, and that's how we differ than Minnesota and every other kind of state. They have their own, like Texas, that's more Mexican than anything. So I think, I don't know, they should have changed it up a little bit.
And just a comment and follow up on Don's too on the, we do police the police. And good cops don't like bad cops. And we deal with things internally. In the state has a certification process for law enforcement. So you have to actually get a license to be a law enforcement officer in South Dakota, and there's minimum standards. And if you're involved in misconduct or other things like that, they can actually revoke your certification or suspend it. So there is a process for policing the police, both at the local level and at the state level, and I don't think a lot of people realize that.
Have you guys had to do that?
Absolutely. We deal with internal discipline issues all the time, and the state, through the Division of Criminal Investigation, Attorney General's Office has a Law Enforcement Standards and Training Commission, which oversees the certification, and they're very active and engaged statewide on looking at law enforcement standards and certification.
That's a good point. And I would also add, just even internally, that, we are making sure that our officers and deputies are utilizing the best practices in law enforcement. And for us at the police department, every time somebody utilizes force of any kind, that's reviewed by a supervisor just to make sure that we're, utilizing the best practices. And I feel like that's important, and I feel like it's something that we need to be doing to make sure that we're serving the public the best we can.
I'm going to bring up one of Mayor Allender's messages that he put on Facebook.
Okay.
You can go on Mayor Steve Allender's Facebook and check this out.
Okay.
But he put, let's see, writing this letter anonymously for fear of retribution. Mayor Allender says, is where I stop reading the letter. Take a stand, use your voice and personality to communicate. Rely on and invest in humanity and interaction and accountability. Thanks for attending my TED Talk. So he's not reading anything from people from anonymous accounts and fake. And I do agree that if you want to say something and you're not going to be like a real person and just talk about things, and you want to hide behind something because you want to make a fake Facebook account and then attack all this stuff because you don't want your job being jeopardized. You got to go about it a certain way rather than the way you think you would in order to get through to somebody.
Yeah.
I don't know. He took a lot of grief on that too. Okay. And I think I stand behind Mayor Allender with that. I'm like, with the podcast, I'll delete fake accounts when people start doing something. Yeah. I want real citizens. I like to talk to real people. I like to have your real face and all that. And I'm not about fake accounts and anonymous tips or anything like that. Like people complaining about things here in the Black Hills, because a lot of them aren't even from around here.
Well, and one thing that we try to do is if we have people, folks that we're out there serving that have questions about the way we do business or questions about our practices or procedures or policies, questions about something that they witnessed our officers doing, we're not afraid to have those sit-down conversations. But like you say, it has to be a real person or a face-to-face.
Yeah.
It's hard to have a communication with somebody that's, hiding behind a Facebook page.
Yeah. And social media has created that platform for a lot of good things, but then it also allows for things like this to creep in where you can create fake accounts and, lob hand grenades at people and not take accountability for them.
Yeah, and they don't take accountability for it. They say whatever they want. Yeah. Because of my job, I don't want to lose my job. Well, shut your mouth. Like I hate that. It really makes me mad. Sorry, I don't know. Like, I have a lot of friends in businesses, and they'll speak up, and that's people who come on the podcast, they have a voice to share with our community, and that's what it should be about. It shouldn't be about people just wanting to say all this stupid stuff. Yeah, maybe they could talk to somebody or send a letter. I don't know. Not a Facebook account. Just delete it. Let's talk about marijuana a little bit.
Okay.
Because it is coming up. Amendment A, Measure 26. Yeah, what's that?
There's two initiatives. One is to put it in the Constitution, and the other one is medical marijuana, to legalize medical marijuana.
Yeah.
Putting anything in the Constitution is not the proper way to go. We saw that with Marcy's Law. When we're talking about victims of crime, we put it in the Constitution, and we needed to fix it because it didn't get put in right the first time. It had to go to another second statewide vote just to change it. So putting something in the Constitution, you're like carving it in concrete, which people that are proponents like that, but generally it's a bad way to do government, in my opinion. That's what the legislative process is for. In terms of marijuana in general, I'm opposed to both adamantly. And, drugs and alcohol drive 95% of our business.
Yeah.
And marijuana is clearly a gateway drug to other drugs. I worked drug investigations for years, supervised our local drug task force, interviewed thousands of people. Nobody ever started with cocaine or methamphetamine and graduated to marijuana. It was always marijuana and graduated to other drugs. I never found one instance of that. Not saying it couldn't have happened. So,
Yeah.
And I think if you look at the data out of Colorado, I think it's a failed experiment. The impact on youth has been profound. The impact on highway safety, the impact on the healthcare system. Now, having said all that, is there a better way to do business? Is there a better way to do business in terms of how we handle drug cases and drug prosecutions? I think there is, and I think we're doing some of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be enforcement, it has to be education, prevention, and it has to have treatment component to it. Unless you have all three, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. No, I'd agree, and it's a complicated issue for sure.
It hugely is.
And especially when you have surrounding states and such where it's legal or in various stages of legal, and here it's not, of course, but that can then add to confusion when people maybe aren't from here or passing through, and we're doing the best we can to work through that.
I just got to say, okay, I did some time myself. Okay. But when I was in, a lot of the guys that were on meth and coke and stuff were alcoholics. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they used to just smoke weed just to fit in because that's what was there. But you really ain't going to find a lot of crazy meth heads or anything like that are high at the time also. Because, I mean, it is put you on your ass kind of weed. So, I mean, I think the benefit, I don't know. Like CBD, I see that scientifically. But the high potent THC stuff, I really don't see a huge benefit in all that at all.
And we support medical marijuana if it's FDA approved, prescribed by a doctor, dispensed by a pharmacist. Short of that, it's not medicine.
Yeah. Okay.
And, it leads into a bigger discussion about drugs in general. And
I'm just asking about your guys' opinion, so it's kind of nice getting your actual... Because, I mean, you guys got to deal with... You guys don't make the law. You guys enforce the law. Mm-hmm. And this is one less law that you'd have to deal with a lot. But, I mean, it's just... You guys have been dealing with it so long. You've seen how it does occur and react. And, I mean, being a gateway drug, too. So, I mean, it's kind of nice to talk to you guys and let you elaborate a little bit.
Yeah. We've had a really recent rash of violent incidences that have happened here lately, and many of those have a drug component involved, and it's definitely a driving force behind the violence in our community.
That was the number one question on Facebook from the community was, what's up with all the murders going on? And is meth that big of a problem with Kristi Noem coming out with that We're On It campaign?
Well, we have, as of right now in 2020, we have 10 homicides that we're in stages of working or that we have solved and put together. And, 8 out of 10 having a strong tie to a drug nexus is a big deal. And it's worth discussion. And it's bigger than just law enforcement. This is a community issue. Yeah. And we can't do this on our own. We need help from the community. We need those that are witnessing drug use and illegal drug use and distribution to be calling us and working with us, because we've found that when it doesn't happen, it can lead to escalating crimes.
And if family members know somebody that's doing drugs and or alcohol and abusing it and putting themselves in a bad situation, get them help. There's a lot of different resources. Law enforcement's one resource. There's a lot of other resources. 70% of our drug arrests in Pennington County are methamphetamine. And there's an opioid crisis around the country, but ours is a methamphetamine crisis. Mm-hmm. And you're right, Governor Noem, when she had her campaign, we talked about meth for several years, didn't get any attention. And in 24 hours, we got nationwide attention, probably more than we wanted in some people's eyes. But,
absolutely.
But it raised the awareness in South Dakota to a level that we'd never been able to achieve.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, our numbers are still high when it comes to methamphetamine use. And methamphetamine being a stimulant makes people do crazy things and acts of violence. And, I mean, it's a bad drug.
Yeah, meth. That is just the dirtiest drug ever. Yeah. It's and all that goes with that. Any of that stuff. it is making a huge impact in our community. And it's making us look bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know. A lot of people do need to stand up if they are in families that have a problem with a cousin or a brother or son or sister or something like that, and they just usually let them do whatever. They're like, no, they'll figure it out, but they won't. You don't. It's hard.
It's highly addictive drug, and the opioids you have what they call medication-assisted treatment, the MAT protocol to help people come off of opioids. There is no medication-assisted treatment for methamphetamine, and it's just long-term residential treatment, both in-house and then outpatient, and it's just a complicated recovery process.
When you're on meth, like you ain't gonna just be like, okay, I'll go to treatment. You just need to be locked up because that's the only thing that's gonna keep you off of it until you commit such a crime that you are in. I've seen a lot of people on it, and they haven't gone to treatment. They've had to go to prison.
Sometimes people got to hit a bottom before they'll, take advantage of the treatment resources. And we're fortunate here with the CARE campus across the street from the courthouse.
Yeah.
We do have 64 treatment beds, 32 male, 32 female, and that's a good resource for our community we're fortunate to have.
Yeah, CARE campus is doing quite a bit. And you guys are going to, is it the old NAU building, they're going to turn it into a treatment center too?
That is the CARE campus. Now, the former NAU building is the CARE campus.
Oh, okay.
And now the one next to it is what they call One Heart, and that's a separate nonprofit entity that is the balance of the NAU campus.
So, with the CARE campus, we get folks out of the immediate crisis. Maybe there's a mental health issue or a drug or alcohol issue, and we can get them a safe place to be for a short term. Whereas the One Heart Center, they're looking to create more of a long-term place for people to get back on their feet. And, once they get out of that immediate crisis, they need somewhere safe to work on things like maybe getting their ID or, getting them connected with a job. But you need a safe place to go to make sure those things happen. And it's kind of a missing component in our community, and we believe it's going to be very helpful.
Yeah. Anytime you're trying to clean up, you kind of have to leave your environment. You have to leave your friends. You have to leave some portion of your family. You need a new place to stay because when you go back to that, it's just your friends. Maybe you're in a dirty place and people are using. That's good. They got that.
Yeah, we're very hopeful.
Car break-ins lately also around here. Like during this whole COVID thing, crime has definitely lifted quite a bit. And I do love the sheriff department's Friday's Fugitive.
As long as you're not on it, it's good, right?
Yeah, that's right. Never want to make that.
No.
But the Friday Fugitive, I get a kick out of that all the time. Somebody will comment on there or something. It'll be like they'll tag their Facebook in it and be like, "Man, you better go turn yourself in."
Yeah. Well, you mentioned car burglaries, and that is definitely something that has escalated. But what we've found is many times it's not somebody breaking a window to get into a vehicle. It's people forgetting forgetting to leave it, forgetting to lock it, leaving valuables inside with it unlocked, leaving the keys inside with it unlocked.
Yep.
It's such an easy preventable crime because for the most part, it's a crime of opportunity where people are just walking around checking door handles to see who left theirs unlocked. And a very simple way to avoid that is to lock things up and don't leave valuables inside. Don't leave a gun inside. A car is not a gun safe. It's for a lot of different reasons not a good place to keep weapons.
Yeah, I agree with the chief. It's easily preventable. So many times the keys are just left in the vehicle. Not that it makes it right to still steal the vehicle or steal stuff in it, but it does make it easy to do so for people.
Yeah, the vast majority of car break-ins are from people leaving their doors unlocked.
Yeah, here's a tip. If your car gets stolen and you leave the keys in it, insurance doesn't cover it.
Yeah.
That's all you. You get to pay for a new vehicle if they trash it.
Mm-hmm.
And don't leave your keys in the vehicle. Don't leave it unlocked. Rapid City and the Black Hills area is really nice, but it's not Pleasantville. It's things happen around here. So
We're not immune.
yeah,
Right.
when it happens to those people that exclude themselves, like this could never happen to me, and then it does, financially, you're gonna be pretty. It's gonna really hurt you. Yeah. And then you walk outside and everything. I mean, maybe even if you just left it unlocked and all your valuables gone. My girlfriend, her car just got broken into. And they shuffled through it, but she didn't leave anything in there. Just some dirty masks. That's about it.
Okay.
Sad they didn't take it.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry to interrupt you. Before we continue, I'd just like to say, if you're in a position to help support the podcast, we would greatly appreciate that, because one of our cameras passed away during the filming of this episode, so we only have half an episode to show you. But I made a slideshow, so you can put it on in the background. Or you can switch over to Spotify, iTunes, or TuneIn Radio to finish up the episode. We hope to bring you more conversations. Thanks for your support. There are links below also to support the podcast. And enjoy. Peace out. Oh, a lot of the media too right now. The pedo stuff, like with Hollywood and Jeffrey Epstein. And then we had during Sturgis Rally the bust with the sex trafficking. I can't believe that is even happening around here at all. And
yeah, that's a joint effort with we call it ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children Unit, and that's a combination of the State Division of Criminal Investigation, the Police Department, Sheriff's Office. We have a joint unit, kind of like our Joint Drug Task Force. And we work with our federal partners. But yeah, it's a sad statement.
So with the future, it's all going to internet-based and stuff. And I mean, how people deal with money and all that stuff. You're going to have to deal with crimes on the web. Like, what kind of crimes are you seeing on the web now?
Of course, I mean, like the things we just referenced, the child pornography is big. And then scams. People are so susceptible to scams, whether it's phone calls or via email or whatever. These, if somebody calls and says you've won $150,000 in a Nigerian lottery, do not send them money.
No. Right. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Yeah. It's just the way it is. And, folks have to be on guard. Emails can come in from all over the place, and a lot of times, you'll have this promise of something. If you give something, well, that should be an indicator right there. Something is wrong.
That's so funny. People fall for that stuff too. But I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. With the sex trafficking and stuff, do you guys have people like searching on the web and making sure like we're doing something to stop this before it gets out of control also?
Well, we're proactive.
Yeah.
Again, through our Internet Crimes Against Children unit, but the sheer volume of traffic on the internet in a community nationwide, worldwide, is such that it's hard to, mine it.
I think like
there's just so much data out there to sift through, so many accounts, so many people using it, but we're very active, very very proactive, and work on it every day.
Our internet crimes detectives are very busy, and they're very dedicated as well, and some of the crimes they have to investigate are terrible. But we're glad they're there because, especially when you're focusing in on children, it's such a valuable resource that we have detectives out there looking out for our youngsters.
And we use them even in a broader context. Everybody has a smartphone now. They have smart TVs. So when we look at crimes that occur with an individual in a residence or whatever, all those pieces of technology, home cameras, there's so much technology out there that we now have to process that we didn't before. And oftentimes it's a good tool that bears fruit in terms of looking at it. People don't realize the electronic footprint they leave, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, big time now. I mean, Google picks up and you go anywhere. You get like a month report of all the places you've been. It's kind of scary how technology's going that far.
Yeah.
You guys going to start using drones to keep an eye on the neighborhoods and stuff?
Well, we have a drone that we share with the police department and search and rescue, but it's not used for routine patrol. It's used for like search and rescue. We've had our special response team call out when you got a barricaded subject, those sorts of things, lost people.
I think it's been even helpful for when we have like a major accident, the drone can go up and get a really accurate picture of what happened and where the vehicles are placed, which can be used to help reconstruct the accident itself.
I think drones are the future. Like, I mean, what was that, the Demolition Man with Sylvester Stallone? They have the drones that pull people over and stuff. I think that's where it's going. That'd be great. So, about the break-ins and stuff, too. 60% of the people in South Dakota are scared to have some sort of property stolen from them, and then only 13% use home security cameras. If you have garages, like on Facebook today, my sister just shared, somebody got their garage broken into. They left it unlocked, and their bike got stolen out of it. A lot of the crimes that you guys are doing around here, do people even have footage at all? Or you guys are just left with a whole, like, nowhere to start at all for anything?
I think it's becoming more prevalent, and just how cheap things like the doorbell cams can be.
Yeah.
I mean, for $100, you can have a very relatively inexpensive, easy to connect device that is keeping an eye on things. I mean, obviously, it's not a fail-safe.
Yeah.
People will still, break the law and still try to steal things with a camera or not. But at least, like you said, it gives us something to start with. And I think we're seeing a trend where people are starting to implement cameras more.
And not just residential, but businesses.
Yeah.
So we have a crime will occur in an area. Mm-hmm. We'll canvass the businesses as well as the residential homes in that area. And in the larger metropolitan areas, cameras are much more prevalent than they are here. But I think that is a trend for the future. More and more cameras.
I think floodlights are a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Right when you walk on.
Yeah. Lighting is a very inexpensive deterrent.
Yep.
And, we'd always advocate for that as well. I mean, it's a very simple way to, help keep things a little bit safer. Folks are less apt to, walk into an area if they're going to commit a crime if it's lit up.
There's a lot of kids around here getting away with stuff. It's real, though. When I was growing up, I mean, it was the occasional vandalism or something. But now it is more consistent than I've ever seen. They're getting away with so much, whether it's the neglect of the parents or just like the law being a little lenient on them.
We run the Juvenile Services Center under the Sheriff's Office. It's a 7-county compact. And the kids that are there have earned their way there, so to speak. I mean, they've committed a lot of crime or very violent crimes. As a society, we've tried to find other alternatives to incarceration when it comes to kids and even adults to see if there's a more effective way to deal with them. But we're seeing more and more violence, in our youth. It's alarming.
It's sad, but because, I mean, they're so young. Mm-hmm. But the more you keep getting away with it, no penalties or less penalty, it's just gonna accumulate and get worse as they get older.
I'm glad you brought that up, and it's something that we've been taking a really close look at. We've looked at some of our violent juvenile offenders and tried to work backwards and figure out how did this kiddo get to this point.
Yeah.
And we've spent time evaluating it, and what we've found is that it starts out very minor. You have runaway, theft, assault, and we've tried to look very hard at what can we do to intervene earlier on at that runaway stage. And we've obtained a grant that we're going to be putting into place where we're going to have some of our school liaison officers working very closely with the youth in our community at that lower level, and working with them as well as their parents to see what resources can we get into place to help this this juvenile before they head down the wrong path too far. And we're just starting this program up. There's a lot of gray area there that we're trying to work through, but it's definitely on our horizon, and it's definitely a very important topic.
Good.
And again, this is something that falls back on law enforcement and the system, when really we need the community, we need families, we need friends of people to come along and intervene in people's lives before it gets to our level.
Yeah.
We don't need any more business. We're not looking for business. We're as busy as we need to be and want to be, frankly. So if as a community and as a family you can help intervene and solve these things, it's better than the system trying to solve it. Yeah.
When you're young, it's more of an influence than it is like knowing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Before it's too late, you already did, and you're like, oh my God. You're like, and it is the friends you hang out with, and those friends being like, dude, don't listen to your parents, let's just go. My parents are cool with it, I'm okay. And then that's when you start having the runaway is, those friends just influence you to get out of there. And then parents too. I mean, it puts so much stress on them just to deal with it. It affects their jobs, their days. They piss off other people, and then it just starts a branch. So I think a lot of parents really need to pay attention to who their kids are hanging out with.
That's a good point.
Definitely.
Good point.
Yeah, you can really fall into some bad influences out there.
And kids are impulsive, so
Yeah.
they're particularly susceptible.
Easy, yeah. Especially these days, everything on the internet, it looks funny, but then there's a lot of outcomes that are pretty bad. I mean, there's a lot of crimes too on the internet you can watch nowadays.
Yeah.
Let's just take a couple questions from the internet, and then we'll be good to go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hold you guys up long enough.
No, it's a good discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, it is.
man.
Good questions.
Thanks. Yeah, it's good to be honest and open. A lot of people don't like to be real these days because everybody's so judgmental.
Yeah.
Like I'd have to host it up, and be like, "Oh yeah, this is perfect."
Right.
But I mean, it's good to be real with the community and
Absolutely.
have somebody talk to you guys and stuff. Like who's a regular everyday guy.
Well, it helps for us to build that trust and transparency that we're trying to have with the people that we serve. So, this is a good opportunity. I'm glad you had us here.
Yeah, I've actually had quite a few friends tell me they would, like even before I started the podcast, that they would like to see the police departments and stuff be more transparent with the community and honest.
Yeah.
And I was like, that gives me an idea.
Yeah.
Who better to talk to? The dude with like a neck tattoo and big old ears. He's got some jail time underneath him.
Well,
But I'm understanding. I'm not biased. It's like, I mean, even the people that hate police and stuff like that, obviously you did some stuff wrong. You just need to, when you're breaking the law and what you're doing. I don't do nothing wrong.
we weren't asking.
Why do cops get so mad when you refuse to let them search your car without a warrant?
Well, probably it's hard without like having an actual situation, but I think in general, an officer probably isn't asking to search your car unless they think there's
Probable cause.
something there, right? Yeah. Typically if if there's nothing in the vehicle, many times people will say, yeah, go ahead. But at the same time, you have the right to refuse it if they don't have a...
If they ask and you're in a rush and you really aren't doing anything and they're like, hey, can I search your car? But they have no probable cause.
Yep.
That's when they start to get a little like, okay, man.
Yeah.
Like, I need to get in there. Like,
Sure.
now you're hiding something.
Sure. I mean, it can be an indicator. Sometimes, folks that have something to hide will say, no, you can't search my vehicle. And so, maybe it's an officer trying to pick up on that. But I think for the most part, I don't think we're asking just willy-nilly. Like, like everybody we're stopping at, it's not a practice where we ask to search the vehicle for people trying to get to work or little old lady going to the grocery store. We're not doing that.
When I did have James John on the podcast, he said they had an officer that was searching every vehicle. And he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I'm just doing it because I can. And they're like, okay, no. Like, you don't need to do that. And it was like what did he get busted doing? Like some 17-year-old girl's car he was just trying to search. And he's like, no. Like,
Yeah, we need to respect people's right to say no.
Yeah.
Because they have a right to say no, and so we need to respect that. And we're teaching our people to respect that. So if it is happening, there's an incident where somebody feels it was inappropriately done, they should let us know.
Absolutely.
When will our Lakota and non-native relationships change for the better? I think we all need to just be equals rather than putting one nationality or anything ahead of each other.
Yeah.
I think the relationship with the police department is actually changing these days too. I think instead of back in the 70s and stuff when police departments demanded respect, now you guys are, you can walk up to a police officer and be like, hey man, how's it going? How's your day? Okay, cool. All right, see you later, man. And it's kind of easy. It's not so uptight how it was.
Yeah.
Like they're...
Yeah, well, I think we're trying hard to build bridges and work on that actively. And probably one of the first steps is for us just to acknowledge that some pretty terrible things happened here years ago. And some of the pain and hurt and anger is still very real today. just as real as it was then. And for us even just to take a minute to acknowledge that and to give our officers some of that training in regards to, where this historical trauma is coming from, I think has been a helpful first step, because we might engage in a traffic stop and instantly somebody is very distrustful and upset. Might give us a little bit of a gauge as to where that's coming from, and we can take a step back as opposed to escalate. We can take a step back and de-escalate and try and find that connection. And sometimes just acknowledging that, yep, some terrible things happen here. That is 100% true. What can we do in this moment to work through the situation that we're in? And, we found that to be at least a good first step.
And I agree with the chief. You have to acknowledge the historical issues that exist in our area in particular. In doing that, then hopefully we can move forward with trying to, like Don said, solve things that are here today we're dealing with. I mean, whether it's mental illness, substance abuse, domestic violence, things that are traumatizing people in our community. How do we come together as a community and solve those kind of issues that are directly impacting people's lives, every single day here?
Another thing we've been trying to work on is to get our department to reflect the community that we serve, meaning that we're trying to bring in more diversity. And I know that's been a focus for the sheriff's office as well. And we've tried some creative things, some newer things, where we've partnered with Western Dakota Tech, Native American students that are interested in law enforcement, and creating a mentorship with our officers. So, that's, and we've opened it up to all students as well, but initially the focus was Native American students. And we found that to be a very it's been a good program, because you're bringing a student in who might not understand, maybe hasn't had that exposure to the law enforcement field, hasn't been in the building. Maybe there's a little bit of distrust that exists, and we're able to bring those walls down. And we've been able to hire people from this program, Native American people, to work in our department. And I think that's another step that we need to continue to work on.
And we get asked all the time, why don't you have more Native American deputies? And we do try and recruit Native American people to work in all aspects of the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
But one thing that we get pushback, or they get pushback from the Native community then, is they say we need more Native American law enforcement officers. Then when we get a Native American deputy, they call them names and pick on them and ostracise them and make it hard for them to do their job. So it's almost a conflict, if
it's
you
a
will.
double standard for sure. Yeah, they're just going to dislike him just because, well, now you're one of them. Mm-hmm. And it's, either way, I mean, following the law or just representing the police, I mean, you got to like him or not. That's a rough field.
Yeah. And we want to try and create diversity within our department and hire, reflect the community, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, but then help us do that.
Yeah.
And I agree with the sheriff, and not only help us do that, but help us hold up the diversity that we currently have. Help us recognize those officers from a diverse background. And, when you encounter them in a nice way so they want to stay and keep working with us, because we have a lot of amazing officers that are out there doing a very difficult job right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's very difficult out there being a police officer. But you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not trying to host it up either. Just like, But no, really, thanks for everything you do. I respect the police and everything that you guys are doing. Chief Hedrick.
Yes.
And Sheriff Thom. Thanks for being here, guys.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having us.
All right, take care, everybody. See you guys.
Good discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, good questions, too.